A billionaire gave his daughters, who are different, 2 black credit cards to test them. How they spend it will teach us a lifelong lesson. If you are new to our stories, subscribe to join the Whisper House Studios family. From up there, 45 stories above the city, Alyssa Hayes stood trembling, a maxed-out black card in her hand, her eyes wide in disbelief. The notification on her phone's screen blinked like a cruel joke. Transaction declined. Her father's black card. The card that had opened doors, bought friends, and paid for every careless dream she ever had, was now just a useless piece of metal. And in that moment, as her reflection glimmered in the window, she realized something that felt heavier than the thunder outside. Her father hadn't given her money. He'd given her a test. And she had failed spectacularly. 2 months earlier, her father, Richard Hayes, a billionaire who built his empire from nothing but sweat and late nights, called his daughters home for what he called a family conversation. Richard wasn't the typical billionaire. No silk robes, no gold chains, just gray suits, the same black coffee every morning, and a gaze sharp enough to make any board member stutter. But lately, something had been bothering him. He was growing older, and he wanted to know which of his daughters could carry on the empire he'd built. He had 2 daughters, Alyssa and Chloe. Alyssa, the older one, was 25. Glamorous, confident, the kind of woman who turned heads when she entered a room, and loved every second of it. She had grown up in luxury and believed money was meant to be spent loudly. Chloe, the younger one, was 22. Quieter, more reserved. The type who preferred coffee shops over nightclubs. She wasn't as flashy as her sister, but there was a kind of depth in her eyes, like she saw the world differently. When the 2 sisters walked into their father's office that morning, they had no idea he was about to change their lives forever. Richard stood by the window, staring at the skyline of Los Angeles. Without turning, he said, "I'm not getting any younger, girls." Alyssa smirked. "Dad, you say that every year." Chloe stayed quiet, sitting down softly on the edge of the couch. Richard turned and faced them, his voice calm but deliberate. "I've spent 30 years building this empire, but I need to know who among you truly understands what money means." Alyssa tilted her head. "We both do. Money means, well, options." Her father smiled faintly. "Does it?" He reached into his jacket and placed 2 black credit cards on the table. They gleamed under the light, identical, sleek, and heavy. "You both get one. Each has the same amount of money loaded on it. You'll have access to the funds for 60 days. You can spend it however you want. Travel. Invest. Donate. Burn it if you like." He paused. "But when those 60 days are over, I'll know who deserves more." Alyssa's eyes widened. "Wait, are you serious?" "Completely." Chloe frowned. "More what?" Richard gave a small smile. "You'll see." The sisters looked at each other. Alyssa's face was glowing like she'd just been handed the keys to heaven. Chloe, on the other hand, looked uneasy. "Any limits?" Alyssa asked, her voice half excited, half greedy. "Just one," Richard said, picking up his coffee. "Don't ask me for advice. Don't ask anyone else for help. What you do with that money will tell me everything I need to know." And with that, the test began. The next day, Alyssa booked a first-class ticket to Paris. 60 days? She laughed over the phone to her friend. "That's basically 2 months of vacation. My dad practically begged me to enjoy life." In Paris, she filled her Instagram feed with champagne, designer bags, and hotel rooms overlooking the Eiffel Tower. Her followers doubled in a week. She captioned one of her posts, "Work hard, spend harder #billionairedaughter." Meanwhile, back in Los Angeles, Chloe sat at a coffee shop with her laptop open and the same black card resting beside her. She wasn't sure what to do with it. The balance was huge, enough to live like her sister for months. But something in her father's eyes that day kept echoing in her mind. "Money doesn't change you, Chloe. It reveals you." She looked at her screen and searched how to learn tech skills fast. She didn't know why. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe curiosity. But something told her this test wasn't about what they could buy. It was about what they could build. That same evening, she enrolled in an online coding bootcamp. She bought a new laptop, paid for her classes in full, and set up a small workspace in her apartment. While Alyssa was sipping champagne in Paris, Chloe was watching YouTube tutorials and debugging code. Every night, she stayed up past midnight, frustrated but determined. Her father didn't call, and she didn't reach out. She didn't even tell him what she was doing. 3 weeks later, Alyssa flew back to New York for a luxury fashion event. Cameras followed her like bees to honey. Reporters called her the billionaire's star child. But deep down, she was starting to notice something strange. Her spending wasn't making her happy anymore. The new clothes looked the same. The champagne tasted the same. Every city started to blur into one long, expensive blur. When she saw Chloe again, she couldn't resist mocking her. Chloe was sitting at a small cafe, typing away on her laptop when Alyssa walked in wearing a $3,000 coat and heels that clicked like a warning. Still coding, Alyssa smirked. "You've got Dad's card and you're wasting it on whatever this is?" Chloe smiled softly. "Learning." "Learning what?" "How to be broke." "Maybe how not to be," Chloe replied gently. Alyssa rolled her eyes. "You're so boring sometimes. We've been rich all our lives, Chloe. We don't need skills. We need to enjoy it." Chloe looked at her sister for a long second before saying quietly, "You might be confusing money with value." Alyssa laughed. "Spare me the quotes. You sound like a motivational poster." And with that, she walked out, tossing her hair dramatically as if the world was watching. By the 5th week, Chloe had built her first small app, a productivity tool that helped freelancers organize their time. She posted it online, and within days, a few people started downloading it. It wasn't much, but it was hers. Meanwhile, Alyssa was getting calls, not from fans, but from her bank. Her spending had gotten out of control. Luxury villas, private jets, jewelry. The money on the card was running out faster than she realized. She shrugged it off at first. "Dad won't let me go broke," she told her friends with a laugh. But by week 7, the laughter had stopped. She tried to buy a new car, declined. Tried to book a flight, declined. The black card, her symbol of power, was suddenly useless. And that's when her father called. When Alyssa walked into her father's office that day, she wore dark glasses to hide the tears she'd cried all morning. Richard was sitting in his chair, calm, reading a report. Chloe was already there, dressed simply, holding a laptop bag. "Dad," Alyssa began, trying to sound casual, "there seems to be an issue with the card." Richard looked up. "Is that so?" "Yeah. It keeps declining." He nodded slowly. "That's because the balance ran out." Alyssa frowned. "Okay, so refill it?" He leaned forward. "Alyssa, tell me, what do you have to show for 60 days? She blinked. "What do you mean?" He stood up and walked to the window. "I gave you equal chances. 2 identical cards. The same balance. And the same instruction. Do whatever you want." He turned. "So tell me, what did you build, Alyssa?" She stuttered. "I traveled. I networked. I represented the family name. People look up to us." "Do they?" he interrupted. "Or do they look at you?" The silence that followed felt heavier than gold. Then he turned to Chloe. "And you?" Chloe swallowed. "I used part of the money to take online tech courses. I built a small app. It's not perfect yet, but it's helping a few people manage their projects better. I was thinking of expanding it if I had more time." Richard stared at her, not with pride, but something deeper. Recognition. Then he smiled faintly. "You'll have plenty of time, Chloe." Alyssa looked between them, confused. "Wait, what's going on?" Richard took a deep breath. "I wasn't testing how you spend. I was testing how you think. I wanted to see who could handle the future of this company when I'm gone." Alyssa's mouth fell open. "You mean this was?" "A test," he said simply. "And only one of you passed." Alyssa stood frozen. All the designer bags, the parties, the champagne, suddenly felt like ashes in her mouth. She realized she'd spent everything on looking successful, while her sister had become successful. Tears welled in her eyes. "Dad, I didn't know." "I know," he said gently. "That's the problem." Chloe turned to her sister, voice soft. "You can still learn, Alyssa. It's not too late." But Alyssa shook her head. "You always were the smart one." "No," Chloe said. "I just asked different questions." That night, Alyssa returned to her apartment and sat by the window. The city lights below didn't look as beautiful as they used to. For the first time in her life, she saw them not as trophies, but as lessons. She realized her father hadn't punished her. He'd saved her from herself. 2 weeks later, Richard held a private meeting with both daughters. He handed Chloe a folder. Inside it were the documents making her the new CEO in training of one of his tech subsidiaries. Chloe was stunned. "Dad, I'm not ready." He smiled. "Neither was I when I started. But you're learning. And that's all that matters." Then he looked at Alyssa. "As for you, I'm not cutting you off. You'll work too in the foundation. You'll learn what money means to people who don't have it." Alyssa nodded quietly, tears in her eyes. For once, she didn't argue. And that was how the Hayes sisters' lives changed forever. One through ambition, the other through awakening. The story spread quietly through business circles, then leaked online. People argued about it. Some said Richard was cruel for testing his daughters. Others said he was brilliant. But one thing was certain. Money doesn't make you rich. Mindset does. And sometimes the biggest lessons in life aren't given. They're discovered. The sound of the elevator echoed through the marble hallway of the Hayes Foundation building. Alyssa stepped out, dressed not in designer heels or silk, but in plain jeans, a cream sweater, and sneakers. She felt invisible. And for the first time in her life, she needed that. The air smelled like printer ink and coffee, far from the perfume and champagne she'd grown used to. She checked her phone. No texts from her old friends. Not one. She used to be the center of every room she entered. Now, she was just the billionaire's daughter who blew her chance. And she hated it. "Morning," a cheerful voice called out. Alyssa turned to see a woman in her 30s, short brown hair, warm smile, name tag that read Dana, program director. "You must be Alyssa," Dana said, offering her a clipboard. "Welcome to the team. Your dad told me you'd be joining us for a while." Alyssa nodded awkwardly. "Yeah, a while. Great. We start with basic admin work. Nothing glamorous. But you'll learn fast." Alyssa blinked. "Admin work." Dana smiled kindly. "Don't worry, everyone starts somewhere." Alyssa wanted to protest, to say, "Do you know who I am?" But something in Dana's tone, gentle, firm, motherly, made her stop. Instead, she took the clipboard and said quietly, "Okay." That single word, "okay," felt heavier than any luxury bag she'd ever carried. The Hayes Foundation wasn't about profit, it was about people. It helped underprivileged youth learn skills, provided scholarships, and funded community projects across the country. Alyssa had heard of it, of course, but she'd never really seen it. Now, walking through the small open-plan office filled with volunteers, she saw photos of children smiling with certificates, women learning trades, and small business owners holding their first checks. Something tugged at her heart. These weren't just stories on a brochure. These were lives changed by the kind of money she'd wasted. Her first task was simple: organize donor reports. She sat at a desk beside an intern named Liam, a college student with a shy grin. "So, you're new?" he asked, typing fast. "Yeah, kind of a career change," she said. "What did you do before?" Alyssa hesitated. "Travel." Liam chuckled. "Cool. What made you come here?" She looked at the stack of reports, the rows of names, people giving $50, $100, sometimes their last savings, just to help others. "I needed to understand something," she said softly. Across town, in a sleek downtown building, Chloe sat at her new desk. The glass walls overlooked the same skyline their father used to stare at. She was now the CEO in training of Hayes Tech Innovations, one of her father's fastest-growing subsidiaries. It didn't feel real. Her father had trusted her, but that trust felt heavy. The app she'd built was growing faster than she could manage. Investors were calling. Journalists wanted interviews. She was grateful and terrified. That evening, her father called her into his office. "How's it going, Chloe?" "Better than expected," she said. "But I keep thinking I'm missing something. Like, there's more I need to prove." Richard smiled. "That feeling never goes away. It keeps you sharp." She looked at him. "Dad, can I ask something?" "Of course. Why give us that test? You could have just chosen me." He took a long breath, walking toward the window, his usual thinking spot. "When I was your age, Chloe, I didn't have money. I had hunger, not for food, but for purpose. Money came later. And when it did, I saw how it changes people. So when I gave you and your sister those cards, I wasn't testing intelligence. I was testing your relationship with money." He turned, his eyes gentle. "Alyssa saw it as power. You saw it as potential. I needed to know which vision could build a future." Chloe nodded quietly, absorbing every word. "But don't think the test is over," he added, smiling faintly. "Life has a way of testing us again, when we least expect it." Weeks passed. Alyssa arrived at the foundation every morning by bus. No driver. No assistant. No fanfare. Just her backpack, and her growing discomfort. She worked with volunteers, learned to file, organize, and listen. She met single mothers starting small businesses, teenagers learning coding, veterans trying to restart their lives. For the first time, she saw money not as a tool for pleasure, but as a bridge for hope. One afternoon, Dana asked her to attend a local outreach event. It was in a rough neighborhood, the kind of place Alyssa had only ever seen from the window of a luxury car. They set up tables, distributed laptops to students, and handed out flyers about scholarships. Alyssa noticed a young girl standing apart, maybe 16, torn jacket, holding a notebook tight to her chest. She approached her gently. "Hey, you okay?" The girl nodded but didn't meet her eyes. "I wanted to sign up for the coding classes, but I don't have Wi-Fi at home." Alyssa froze for a moment. You don't?" The girl shook her head. "I use the library when I can." Alyssa looked down at the flyer. She used to spend more on a single dinner than it would take to buy this girl a cheap laptop and internet access for a year. Something broke inside her and rebuilt itself in the same moment. She knelt beside the girl and said, "What's your name?" "Jayla." Alyssa smiled. "Jayla, you'll have Wi-Fi by the end of the week. I promise." The girl looked up, surprised. Really? Really?" That night, Alyssa went home and opened her savings account. She didn't have much left, but she had enough. For the first time, she spent money not to look rich, but to make someone else's life better. While Alyssa was rediscovering herself, Chloe's company was getting attention. Tech blogs were calling her the billionaire's genius daughter. But success comes with noise, and not all of it was kind. Some people whispered that Chloe only succeeded because of her last name. Others said her app was lucky timing, not real talent. One morning, she overheard two investors murmuring outside her office. "She's smart, but she's no Richard Hayes. Give her a few months. The market will eat her alive." Chloe closed her laptop and stared out the window. For the first time, doubt crept in. She wasn't like her father, confident, fearless. She still made mistakes, still second-guessed herself. Was she really ready for this? That night, she called Alyssa. It had been weeks since they'd spoken. Alyssa answered after a few rings. Hey, Chloe said softly. "You sound tired." Alyssa laughed lightly. "I am. Sorting files is harder than it looks." "How's the foundation?" "It's eye-opening," Alyssa said, sitting on her bed. "I met this girl today, Jayla. She wants to learn coding but can't afford internet. I helped her out." Chloe smiled through the phone. "That's amazing." Alyssa hesitated. "How's CEO life?" Chloe sighed. "Lonely. Everyone looks at me like I have all the answers. But half the time, I'm just trying not to mess up." "Welcome to being human," Alyssa said quietly. For a moment, neither spoke. Just silence, but not the uncomfortable kind. The healing kind. Then Chloe asked, "Do you ever wish things were like before?" Alyssa thought for a long second. "Sometimes. But I think this version of us is better." "Yeah," Chloe whispered. "Maybe Dad knew that." A few weeks later, Chloe was invited to speak at a national tech conference. Thousands of people. Cameras. Journalists. It was her biggest spotlight yet. But that morning, as she stood backstage, panic hit her hard. Her slides weren't loading. The Wi-Fi crashed. The event manager was frantic. Then she saw someone walking toward her, Alyssa, holding a small laptop bag. "Hey, little sis," Alyssa said, smiling. "Wait, what are you doing here?" "Dad told me about the conference. Thought I'd come support." Chloe exhaled, relieved. "I'm so glad you're here. The slides are gone. Everything's." "Relax," Alyssa interrupted gently, opening the laptop she'd brought. "I've got a backup. Dad gave me access to your files in case this happened." Chloe blinked. "He did." Alyssa grinned. "Guess he didn't trust technology as much as you do." They both laughed, a real, sisterly laugh they hadn't shared in months. Minutes later, the slides were up. Chloe walked on stage, heart pounding, but when she glanced to the side and saw Alyssa watching with pride, something inside her steadied. She began to speak, not like a billionaire's daughter, but like a leader. When she finished, the hall erupted in applause. Cameras flashed. People stood. Alyssa clapped the loudest, tears in her eyes. Afterward, reporters swarmed them both. "Ms. Hayes, what inspired your app?" one asked. Chloe smiled. "Honestly? My sister. She reminded me that real success isn't about what you earn. It's about what you learn." Alyssa blinked, shocked. "And she's the reason I'm expanding the app," Chloe continued. "We're launching a free version next month for underprivileged teens who want to learn tech." The crowd gasped. Richard Hayes, watching from the audience, smiled proudly. That night, Richard invited both daughters to dinner. The restaurant was quiet, candlelit, private. He raised his glass. "To both of you," he said. "You finally understood what I wanted you to learn." Alyssa smiled shyly. "What's that?" "That money isn't the test. Character is. He looked between them. Alyssa, you found purpose where there was pride. Chloe, you found strength where there was fear. And together, you found each other again. They sat in silence, humbled. Then Richard added, but there's one more thing. Both looked up. I'm retiring at the end of this year. The company needs not just a CEO, but a team. I want you two to run it together. Chloe froze. Together? Yes. One of you understands business. The other understands people. Neither can succeed alone. Alyssa's lips parted in disbelief. You'd trust me again? Richard nodded. You earned it. Tears filled her eyes. She reached across the table and held Chloe's hand. Months later, the Hayes sisters became an unstoppable team. Chloe handled strategy and innovation. Alyssa ran the foundation side, connecting their products with real communities. Together, they launched Project Bridge, a national program giving free tech education to thousands of low-income students, including Jayla, who now interned at Hayes Tech. During the first press launch, Alyssa stood on stage, looked into the cameras, and said, "My father once gave me a black card to test what I valued most. I failed that test, but life gave me a second one. And this time I chose better." The audience rose in applause. Somewhere in the front row, Richard smiled, proud, fulfilled, and at peace. Months after the launch, Chloe asked her father over dinner, "When did you know Alyssa had changed?" Richard smiled. "When she stopped spending to prove her worth and started giving to find it." "And when did you know I was ready?" Chloe asked. "When you started doubting yourself. Only humble leaders build lasting empires." He raised his glass. "To both of you, for turning a black card into a golden lesson." That night, Alyssa scrolled through her old Instagram posts, designer bags, hotels, selfies. Then she opened a new account. She named it Lessons from the Black Card. Her first post was a picture of a simple notebook and pen with the caption, "I once thought money gave me value. Then I learned, value gives money meaning. Hashtag the Black Card Test, hashtag sisters who build hashtag mindset over money." The post went viral. Millions watched the video of their story, not because it was about wealth, but because it was about growth. And as the comments flooded in, one stood out. "This story made me want to be better with what I have." Alyssa smiled. Then it was all worth it. The morning light slid across the glass walls of Hayes Tech Innovations, washing the office in gold. Alyssa and Chloe stood side by side on the balcony, coffee cups in hand, watching the city below. 6 months had passed since their father named them co-leaders. They'd turned the company into a symbol of purpose. Investors trusted them. The public loved them. Everything looked perfect, until the cracks began to show. Chloe was the first to notice it. Late one night, she sat in her office reviewing quarterly data when something strange appeared. A $2.7 million transfer labeled Community Outreach, pending. She frowned. Outreach? That's Alyssa's department. She clicked again. Another transfer. Then another. All just under the approval threshold. Her stomach tightened. That can't be right. The door creaked open. Ethan Grant, their CFO, stepped in. Mid-40s, charming, too smooth for his own good. "Working late again," he said with a grin. Chloe smiled faintly. "Yeah, trying to figure out why the foundation's books look like Swiss cheese." Ethan chuckled. "Don't worry about that. Just timing issues." Grant's moved slowly. But the way his eyes flickered, fast, uneasy, set off alarms in her gut. The next morning, Chloe met Alyssa in the cafe downstairs. Alyssa arrived humming, holding her phone. "Guess what? The Black Card Sisters video hit 20 million views." Chloe smiled weakly. "That's amazing. But we might have a problem." Alyssa frowned. "Problem?" Chloe slid her tablet across the table. "Someone's bleeding money through your department." Alyssa scanned the figures. "That's impossible. Dana and I review every expense." "Not this time," Chloe said quietly. "Look at the signatures." Alyssa's eyes widened. Her digital signature copied. Forged. She looked up, face pale. "You think someone's stealing from us?" Chloe nodded. "And if it gets out, everything we've built collapses." Before they could act, another storm hit. Their father collapsed during a board meeting. Richard Hayes, the man who once stood like a mountain, was rushed to Cedars-Sinai. Diagnosis: heart failure. Alyssa froze in the hospital hallway, gripping Chloe's hand. "This can't be happening." Chloe fought back tears. "He'll pull through. He has to." But the doctors' faces told a different story. Stress. Age. Too many years of building empires and testing legacies. Richard lay unconscious, tubes everywhere. Machines beeped in rhythm, steady, fragile. And in that sterile room, the sisters realized. The black card test had never really ended. Their father's empire, his name, his dream, was now in their hands alone. Days later, Alyssa went through the foundation records herself. She traced the transfers, each funneled to a fake nonprofit tied to a shell company. The director's name made her blood run cold. Ethan Grant. She stormed into Chloe's office. He's been stealing millions, using my signature. Chloe slammed her laptop shut. We need proof before we accuse him. Alyssa's eyes burned. I don't need proof. I need justice. No, Chloe said firmly. You need control. If we go public too soon, the board will panic, the press will spin it, and Dad's fighting for his life while that snake drains his company. For a moment they just stared, anger and fear colliding. Then Alyssa whispered, I'll handle it. That night, Alyssa invited Ethan to dinner at a luxury restaurant. He arrived smiling, confident, the kind of man who thought charm could erase crime. Glad you called, he said, sitting down. We haven't had a chat in ages. Alyssa forced a smile. Yeah, been busy. Thought I should hear directly from you about the community projects. He grinned. Ah, yes. Everything's running smoothly. She leaned forward. Then you won't mind if we audit them. His smile froze. Audit. Standard procedure, she said, sliding a folder across the table. Inside, screenshots of the forged signatures and bank transfers. Ethan blinked. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, she cut in. You used my name to steal from the people who trust us. He leaned back, mask slipping. You have no proof this was me. Alyssa smiled coldly. You're right. I don't. But the FBI will. His face drained of color. Alyssa pressed a small button on her watch. Hidden mic recording everything. For the first time since the black card, she wasn't spending, she was strategizing. The next morning, she and Chloe presented the evidence to the board. Ethan denied everything until the recording played. Used her name to move the funds. No one will check. His voice echoed through the room like a confession carved in stone. He was escorted out. The board voted unanimously to remove him. After the meeting, Alyssa stepped into the hall, heart pounding. Chloe followed, smiling proudly. That was incredible. Alyssa exhaled. I just did what had to be done. Chloe squeezed her hand. Dad would be proud. A voice behind them said, weak but warm, he is. They turned. Richard Hayes, pale but standing, supported by a nurse, smiled at them. I heard everything, he said. You both passed the second test. They helped him sit down. What do you mean second test? Chloe asked. Richard smiled faintly. The first test was about money. The second about trust. I needed to know if you'd protect each other and the people who depend on you. Alyssa shook her head, tears forming. You planned this? No, he said. Life did. But I saw how you handled it. You didn't turn on each other. You fought for what's right. That's leadership. Chloe smiled through tears. Then maybe we're ready now. Richard nodded. You're ready for what's next. Weeks later, once he'd recovered enough to work part-time, Richard called them both to his home office. Stacks of old journals and business plans covered the desk. He handed each of them a folder. Inside was a blueprint for something called the Hayes Legacy Initiative, a fusion of their company and foundation to teach entrepreneurship to low-income communities nationwide. It's my final vision, Richard said. But it won't be mine for long. It needs your hands, your hearts. Alyssa looked up. This is massive. It'll take years. Richard smiled. Then you'd better start today. But as the initiative grew, so did the tension. Alyssa wanted to expand fast, open centers in every state. Chloe wanted to move slowly, test each program first. Board meetings got heated. Voices rose. One night, after a particularly tense meeting, Alyssa stormed out. You never believe in my ideas. Chloe followed. It's not that. I just don't want us to crash from growing too fast. You sound like Dad, Alyssa snapped. Careful, cautious, always waiting. At least I'm thinking beyond my ego. Chloe shot back. The words hung there, sharp, regrettable. They didn't speak for a week. One evening, Alyssa found an envelope on her desk. Her name in her father's handwriting. Inside was a short note. My dear Alyssa, when you and your sister fight, remember this. Leadership isn't about being right. It's about being responsible. Love each other enough to listen. Dad. Alyssa read it 3 times. Then she grabbed her phone. Chloe, she said when her sister answered. I miss you. A pause. Then softly. I miss you too. A month later, a cyber attack hit Hayes Tech. Thousands of user accounts were at risk. The press called it the Hayes hack. Panic spread. Chloe had to lead an emergency response team through the night. Alyssa handled the media, calmly assuring the public they were safe. At 3 a.m., Chloe looked up from her screen to see Alyssa walking in with coffee. You should be home, Chloe said. Not when you're here, Alyssa answered. Let's fix this together. They worked until dawn. By morning, the systems were secure, the data safe. The press called their response a masterclass in crisis leadership. Richard watched from home with a smile. The third test had arrived, and they had passed again. But his smile faded weeks later when his health took another turn. He was admitted again, weaker this time. The sisters sat by his bedside. Don't you dare leave us yet, Alyssa whispered, trying to smile. I'm not going anywhere, he replied. Not until you two finish what we started. Chloe squeezed his hand. We will. He looked at them both. You remember that black card? They nodded. He smiled. It was never about money. It was about what you'd do when I wasn't there to swipe for you. His eyes closed for a moment, resting. The machines beeped steadily, a rhythm of time and love. When he woke again later that night, he found them still there. Chloe asleep in the chair, Alyssa typing emails on her laptop. You never quit, do you? He murmured. Alyssa looked up, smiling through tears. Learn from the best. He reached for her hand. Promise me you'll take care of her. Always. Then he turned to Chloe, half awake. And you take care of her too. She's strong, but her heart gets heavy. Chloe nodded. Promise. He closed his eyes again, content. The legacy was safe. Months later, Richard officially retired, moving to a quiet ranch in Colorado. The sisters ran the empire together, their bond unbreakable. The Hayes Legacy Initiative spread nationwide. Over 200 centers, thousands of students. Jayla became one of their top trainers. During the grand opening of the 200th center, Chloe gave a speech. Our father once taught us that money reveals who you are. But we've learned something else. Pressure reveals what you believe. We believe in people. In change. In each other. The crowd roared. And somewhere in the front row, Richard clapped with tears in his eyes. The story begins on a cold morning in Aspen, Colorado. The sky was gray. The wind whispered through pine trees. Hundreds gathered at a private cemetery for Richard Hayes' memorial service. He had passed quietly in his sleep. No pain, no struggle. Just peace. A man who had built an empire, tested his daughters, and left behind a legacy that changed thousands of lives. Alyssa stood in black, holding her speech but unable to read it. Chloe stood beside her, holding her hand tightly. Jayla was there too, no longer an assistant but a friend dressed simply, crying quietly. When the service ended, everyone left, except the two sisters. They stood before the marble headstone that read, Richard Hayes. Father. Visionary. Builder of dreams. The silence was heavy until Chloe finally whispered, He's really gone. Alyssa nodded, tears streaking down her face. Feels like he's still testing us. Chloe laughed softly. Maybe he is. Neither of them knew how right she was. 2 days later, their father's lawyer, Mr. Raymond Holt, called them to his office. Alyssa expected a will. Chloe expected formalities. What they got was something else. Raymond, a tall man with silver hair and calm eyes, placed a sealed brown envelope on the desk. Your father instructed that this be given to you 36 hours after his passing, he said. He was very specific. Chloe frowned. What is it? Raymond hesitated. A message. And instructions. He handed them a small USB drive. Play this first. They inserted the drive into the laptop. Richard's face appeared on screen, smiling gently. Hello, girls, he began. If you're watching this, it means I've finished my race. His voice was calm, fatherly. You've both made me proud. You turned wealth into purpose, rivalry into unity, and my mistakes into lessons. He paused, then leaned closer to the camera. But there's one more thing I need you to know. Chloe blinked. One more thing. Richard continued. There's a third account tied to the black card. It wasn't part of your inheritance. It was part of my secret. And now it's yours to uncover. Alyssa frowned. Secret? Richard smiled faintly. I built this empire for reasons that went beyond profit. If you find the truth, you'll understand everything, even why I tested you. The video ended. The room fell silent. In the envelope was a single piece of paper. One line written in his familiar cursive. Follow the card's shadow. Alyssa read it aloud. Follow the card's shadow? What does that even mean? Raymond shrugged. He didn't tell me. Only that the truth would reveal itself if you followed that clue. Chloe turned the paper over. On the back was a small printed map of New York City, with a red X on Soho. New York, she said softly. That's where everything started. Alyssa looked up, eyes determined. Then that's where we're going. 2 days later, they were in New York. The city hadn't changed, loud, alive, restless. They found the address marked on the map. 241 Green Street. It wasn't an office. It was an old brick building with a faded sign, Hayes & Sons Electronics. Inside, dust covered every shelf. Old tools, computer parts, faded family photos. This was his first store, Chloe whispered. Before he made his first million. They wandered deeper until Alyssa noticed something strange. A locked drawer on an old wooden desk. Carved on it, a small black card symbol. Her heart skipped. Follow the card shadow. She tried the drawer. Locked. Chloe knelt, searching the floor, and found a hidden latch beneath the desk. She pulled it, click. The drawer slid open. Inside, a small box, a black envelope, and a single photo. The photo showed their father in his 20s, standing with a woman they didn't recognize. Dark hair, warm smile. She was holding a baby, but not one of them. Alyssa frowned. Who is she? Inside the envelope was a key card, matte black, embossed with their father's initials, and a note. To access what matters most, return to where I lost it. RH. Below it, a date, 1989. They took the photo and note back to their hotel, searching records. 1989. Their father would have been 25. Chloe searched his old business archives. In 1989, he disappeared from public records for almost a year. Alyssa turned the photo over. On the back, the day she said goodbye. Her eyes widened. Chloe, do you think? That's Mom. Chloe asked. No, Alyssa said softly. Mom met him years after this. This woman came before. They both sat in silence as realization dawned. Richard Hayes, the billionaire, the mentor, the moral compass, had a past even his daughters never knew. The black key card had a code, RH Legacy. Alyssa tried running it through their company's security systems. It matched an old corporate vault location in Connecticut. The next morning, they drove there, a massive facility built like a fortress. Security scanned their IDs, hesitated at the code, then let them through. Deep inside, in a cold metal room, stood a single digital safe. A slot for the card. Alyssa slid it in. The screen blinked blue, then green. Access granted. Inside the safe, a laptop, a folder, and a letter. Chloe opened the folder first. Inside were birth certificates, adoption forms, and old financial ledgers. At the top, the name Maria Hayes. Alyssa whispered, Maria? Chloe's voice trembled. Our sister. Their father had another daughter, born before them. He had tried to raise her with the woman in the photo, but tragedy struck. The woman died in an accident. The baby, Maria, was adopted by another family when Richard was still building his career. He'd searched for her for years, but couldn't find her. Alyssa's hand covered her mouth. He built everything for her. Chloe nodded. And when he couldn't find her, he built it for us, to do what he couldn't. They turned on the old laptop. A video file played automatically. Their father appeared again, younger, tired, sitting in a dimly lit office. If you're seeing this, he said, it means I never found Maria. I was too focused on success, too blind to the people I lost along the way. Every company I built, every dollar I made, was an attempt to fill the hole I created when I lost her. He paused, eyes glistening. So I tested you, my daughters, not to make you rich, but to see if you could value what I failed to. Love, wisdom, time. He sighed softly. Find her if you can. Tell her she was never forgotten. And if you can't, let every child you helped through Hayes' legacy be the daughter I never got to raise. The screen went black. Alyssa was crying openly. All this time, it wasn't just business. Chloe whispered. It was redemption. From that day, the sisters made it their mission to find Maria. They hired investigators, searched records, and tracked every lead. Months passed. Nothing. Until one evening, Chloe received a call. A social worker from Vermont said, I think I found someone who might be her. They flew there immediately. At a small community center, they found a woman teaching coding to kids, humble, kind, early 30s. Her name, Maria Carter. Born Maria Hayes. When they told her who they were, she froze. Then tears welled in her eyes. My whole life, she whispered. I wondered if he ever thought of me. Alyssa took her hand. He never stopped. They showed her the video, the photos, the letters. Maria cried, covering her mouth. I used to think being given away meant I wasn't enough, she said. Chloe shook her head. He did it because he thought it was the only way to save you. He wasn't perfect, but he spent his life trying to make it right. Maria smiled through tears. Then maybe I can finish what he started. They hugged, 3 sisters, finally complete. Months later, the Hayes Legacy Initiative launched its biggest project yet, the Maria program, giving full scholarships to girls from underprivileged backgrounds who wanted to learn tech. Maria became the program director. During the opening ceremony, she stood at the podium beside Alyssa and Chloe and said, Our father taught us something powerful. Money can open doors, but love opens hearts. Today, we're not just building futures, we're repairing history. The audience stood and applauded. And for the first time, all 3 sisters felt peace. That night, after the event, Alyssa found an email in her inbox from an unknown sender. Subject, for my girls. It was an auto-timed message from their father's old account. You found her. Good. I knew you would. The black card wasn't to test what you'd buy. It was to show you what money can't buy. Purpose, forgiveness, and connection. My shadow was never meant to follow you. It was meant to guide you. Dad. Alyssa closed the laptop and looked at her sisters. Looks like the test is finally over. Chloe smiled. No, it's just beginning. They stepped out onto the balcony overlooking the city. The same city their father once ruled, now shining under their care. 2 years after finding Maria, the Hayes Legacy Initiative had exploded into a global movement. From New York to Nairobi, from Chicago to Cape Town, their tech academies were teaching thousands of young women to code, build, and dream. The media called them the Daughters of Vision. But with fame came pressure. Major investors began circling, offering billions to franchise the initiative worldwide. One offer stood above the rest. Titan Global Ventures, a tech conglomerate known for turning charities into billion-dollar profit machines. Their CEO, Victor Lane, flew in personally to meet the sisters. He sat in their glass conference room, grinning like a wolf in silk. Ladies, he said, with our resources you could reach millions. Imagine, Hayes Legacy schools in every country, your father's dream everywhere. Alyssa's eyes sparkled. That's incredible. Chloe's didn't. And what do you get out of it? Victor smirked. We'd handle operations, you keep the vision. Think of it as scaling hope. Chloe leaned back, crossing her arms. Hope doesn't need shareholders. Victor laughed. Hope doesn't pay for buildings either. The room went cold. That night, in their penthouse, the argument erupted. Alyssa paced near the window, city lights glowing behind her. Chloe, this is what Dad would have wanted: growth, expansion, scale. Chloe shook her head. No, Dad wanted impact. He wanted people, not profit. You're being emotional. And you're being naive. Chloe snapped. You think Titan cares about Dad's dream? They'll slap his name on it, cash the checks, and forget what it stands for. Maria stepped between them. Stop. Both of you. But the words had already cut too deep. Alyssa's voice softened. I just want to make the world see what he built. Chloe looked at her, eyes glassy. Then don't sell it. They turned away from each other, silence louder than any scream. The next week, Titan Global sent an official proposal. A $3 billion partnership. Immediate expansion to 30 new countries. Alyssa signed the preliminary interest papers. Chloe refused to even look. Tension filled every board meeting. Employees whispered. Investors panicked. The sisters, once symbols of unity, had become headlines of division. The Hayes legacy split. Maria tried to mediate. He taught us to protect each other, not fight each other. Chloe sighed. That's easy when one of us isn't selling our father's name. Alyssa's reply was quiet but sharp. Maybe I'm not selling it. Maybe I'm making it live forever. That night, Alyssa dreamed of her father. He was standing on a beach, the same one from her childhood. He looked older, softer. Why are you here? She asked. He smiled. To remind you what I gave you. The company? The money? He shook his head. No. The card. She frowned. The black card? He nodded. It wasn't just a test. It was a mirror. To show you who you are when no one's watching. Are you still her, Alyssa? She looked down. I don't know. He placed a hand on her shoulder. Then find out, before the deal signs you instead. The dream faded. The next morning, chaos. A whistleblower leaked Titan Global's internal memo to the press. It revealed their real plan: to privatize the Hayes legacy, shut down free programs, and turn the initiative into a tuition-based empire. News broke everywhere. Titan caught exploiting Hayes' legacy deal. Alyssa's phone exploded with calls. Sponsors withdrew. Critics attacked. And Chloe? She just stood in Alyssa's office doorway, silent. Alyssa broke down. I didn't know, Chloe. I swear. Chloe's eyes softened. I know. Alyssa wiped her tears. Then why do I still feel like I failed him? Chloe smiled sadly. Because you care. And that's exactly why you didn't. The sisters went on national TV together to address the scandal. Alyssa spoke first. We made a mistake. I made a mistake. I believed growth meant good. But growth without heart is greed. We will not sell our father's legacy. The audience erupted in applause. Chloe placed a hand on her shoulder. Our father built Hayes' legacy to lift people, not price them out. And that will never change. That clip went viral, 60 million views in 24 hours. The internet flooded with messages. Real leaders admit when they're wrong. The Hayes sisters just saved their father's dream. For the first time in weeks, the world wasn't divided. It was inspired. Weeks later, while cleaning their father's old study at the ranch, Maria found something hidden inside the piano bench, a folded letter addressed to my daughters. She gathered them both and read it aloud. If you're reading this, it means you've faced the hardest part of leadership, choosing between what grows fastest and what lasts longest. Remember this, trees that grow fast often fall first. But the ones that take time, their roots outlive storms. Don't chase expansion. Chase depth. And when the world tries to buy your soul, make sure it's not for sale. Dad. Tears fell. Alyssa whispered, he knew we'd face this. Chloe smiled faintly. He always did. Instead of signing with Titan, they launched a new branch. Hayes Legacy Online, a free global education platform. Within months, millions of students had joined from around the world, learning coding, design, business, and life skills taught by volunteers. When a reporter asked Alyssa, why turn down billions to give it all away? She replied simply, because some things are worth more than billions. Our father taught us that with a single black card. 2 years later, they hosted the Hayes Legacy Global Gala, celebrating 10 million graduates. The hall shimmered with light. Maria gave a speech first. Then Chloe took the stage. Our dad once tested us with a card that could buy anything. But what he really wanted to know was, could we build something money couldn't buy? Then Alyssa stepped forward, holding that same black card, now encased in glass. This isn't a symbol of wealth, she said. It's a reminder of what real value looks like, heart, purpose, and people. The crowd rose in a standing ovation. As the applause thundered, Alyssa looked out at the audience, young girls, families, dreamers, and for a brief second, she imagined her father standing in the back, smiling. A flashback played in her mind. The day he first handed her the card. His voice echoing. This card doesn't make you rich. What you choose to do with it, that's what defines you. She whispered under her breath. We finally did it, Dad. Months later, a journalist from Time interviewed the three sisters for a cover story titled, The Family That Rebuilt Philanthropy. The interviewer asked, if your father could see what you've done, what do you think he'd say? Chloe smiled. He'd say, took you long enough. Everyone laughed. Then Alyssa said softly, he'd say he's proud. Maria added, and that the real test never ends because life keeps giving them. On the anniversary of his passing, they visited his grave again, the same place where the story had begun. They brought flowers. The black card sat in a small glass frame beside the tombstone. Chloe whispered, we didn't just pass your test, Dad. We rewrote it. Alyssa placed her hand on the marble. You built a legacy for us, but we built one with you. Maria smiled. And it's still growing. The wind blew softly, carrying the sound of their laughter. 3 sisters, 3 hearts, 1 legacy. In the end, the black card was never about spending. It was about seeing who you become when given the power to choose. Alyssa chose ambition. Chloe chose wisdom. Maria chose compassion. And together, they discovered what their father had always known, that the true wealth of a person isn't in what they can buy, but in what they can build, forgive, and give away.